Some of country music's biggest stars carried secrets that followed them quietly through decades of fame, only to surface when time and truth finally collided. Stories of hidden love, private mistakes, and affairs that were buried beneath fame came forward long after the applause had faded. These weren't small confessions or rumors, they were revelations that shattered the clean, wholesome image many fans believed. Each of these stories pulled back the curtain on lives shaped by passion, temptation, and consequences that refused to stay hidden. Number 1. Charlie Pride. While Pride built a legendary career and carried himself with grace and dignity, a deeply personal chapter from his past eventually surfaced. Years earlier, he had fathered a son with a flight attendant, a truth kept private while he toured the world and gained success. The story became public only after a Texas court became involved. DNA testing confirmed the child as his, and the court ordered that the boy take the Pride family name. Once court records were discovered by journalists, the story spread, revealing that even one of country music's most disciplined and respected figures had a complicated personal life beneath his polished exterior. Number 2. Sarah Evans. In 2006, the singer's life was thrust into headlines after she filed for divorce, accusing her husband of having an affair with their nanny. The claim set off a media storm. Lawyers argued, countered, and denied, but the court filings, now public, fueled widespread speculation. Evans withdrew from Dancing with the Stars during the scandal, signaling the depth of personal turmoil behind the scenes. Although settlements and legal adjustments followed, the damage to her public image lingered long after the courtroom closed. Number 3. Jimmy Allen. In 2023, Allen's rising career unraveled when legal accusations surfaced. As claims appeared in court filings and public statements, Allen himself admitted to having an affair and publicly apologized to his wife. Shortly after, divorce followed. The confession shook fans who had seen him as grounded, family-centered, and humble. What had been a superstar on the rise now found his reputation reshaped by choices made in secret, choices that could no longer be hidden once the truth came to light. The revelation of Jimmy Allen's affair came fast and publicly, leaving little room for rumors or denials. It became the moment that shifted his public image, showing how quickly fame can be overshadowed by private choices. Number 4. Willie Nelson. Throughout his long career, Willie Nelson lived with stories that trailed behind him, and over time, many of those private chapters came into the spotlight. One of those chapters involved an affair that resulted in the birth of his daughter Paula. For a while, the situation remained hidden from the public as his career grew. Everything changed when his then-wife, Shirley Colley, discovered a hospital bill addressed to Willie and the child's mother. That document made the secret impossible to ignore. Willie later acknowledged that he had fathered Paula during the affair, admitting that the truth became undeniable once the evidence surfaced. Over the years, Willie openly reflected on his infidelity, recognizing that his constant travel and fame brought temptation that he did not always resist. Those who toured with him remembered women waiting for him in every city, and Willie rarely pretended otherwise. His honesty about his mistakes softened some reactions, although the emotional consequences on those close to him remained real. Number 5. Jason Aldean. Jason Aldean's private life was thrust into the public eye in 2012 when photos emerged of him in a Los Angeles nightclub kissing Brittany Kerr, who was not his wife. At the time, Aldean was married to his high school sweetheart, Jessica Ussery. The images spread online within hours, and news outlets quickly reported on the scandal. Aldean issued a statement acknowledging his behavior and attributing it to drinking, but the photographs spoke louder than any explanation. Ussery initially tried to hold the marriage together, but within months the couple filed for divorce. Eventually, Aldean and Brittany Kerr continued their relationship and later married, making the story follow him for years as interviews and articles continued to reference the scandal. Number 6. LeAnn Rimes. In 2009, LeAnn Rimes faced intense public backlash when her affair with actor Eddie Cibrian became known. At the time, Rimes was married to Dean Sherrimet and Cibrian was married to Brandi Glanville. The two met on the set of a TV movie, and rumors grew after paparazzi photographed them together. Rimes later confirmed the relationship and admitted that she had fallen in love with Cibrian. The scandal severely impacted her public image as the breakup unfolded publicly through interviews, tabloid coverage, and statements from Glanville. Rimes and Cibrian eventually married, but the controversy continued to follow them for years as one of country music's most talked about love triangles. Number 7. Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash's personal life became almost as legendary as his music. While married to his first wife, Vivian Liberto, Cash's relentless touring schedule and struggles with addiction strained their marriage. As he spent more time performing with June Carter, rumors of their relationship intensified. At first, the whispers were contained within the music community, but eventually, the emotional connection between Cash and Carter became impossible to hide as the two appeared together on stage and on the road, signaling a relationship that went far beyond music. Fans began to notice the undeniable connection between Johnny Cash and June Carter whenever they shared the stage, and soon the press started picking up on their chemistry. The growing closeness could no longer be dismissed as just performance. Cash's marriage to Vivian eventually came to an end in 1966, and 2 years later, he and June Carter were married. Years afterward, both openly acknowledged that their relationship began during one of the darkest and most chaotic periods of his first marriage. The confirmation simply put into words what many had suspected all along. Their story became part of his legacy, retold in documentaries, biographies, and the film Walk the Line, illustrating how deeply his private choices had shaped both his career and the myth that grew around him. Number 8. Conway Twitty. Conway Twitty lived a life surrounded by music, adoration, and a constant swirl of rumors. Known for tender love ballads, he frequently faced speculation about his offstage relationships. The most talked about connection was with Loretta Lynn, his longtime duet partner. Their chemistry and performance sparked ongoing gossip that their bond extended beyond music. Though neither ever confirmed such an affair publicly, whispers from inside the industry continued for decades. Twitty's marriages had their share of turmoil, and many believed infidelity played a role. After his passing in 1993, journalists revisited these stories, drawing parallels between the longing in his songs and the emotional complexity of his real life. Whether fact or rumor, the speculation remains deeply intertwined with his legacy and the timeless duets he shared with Loretta Lynn. Number 9. Merle Haggard. Merle Haggard lived with the same restless spirit that colored his music. By the time he reached superstardom in the 1970s, he had already gone through several marriages, each marked by the strain of fame and constant travel. When he married fellow country singer Leona Williams, the road did not slow down. Stories from band members and longtime associates described nights when Haggard slipped away after shows, giving in to the pull of life on the road. When his marriage to Williams eventually crumbled, those close to them acknowledged that infidelity had played a part. In interviews later in life, Haggard himself admitted he had not always been faithful. His heartbreak songs and regret-filled lyrics suddenly felt less like art and more like confession. The rumors eventually became recorded history, appearing in books and features that tried to explain the man behind the outlaw legend, a man whose talent was extraordinary but whose loyalty often faltered. Number 10. Hank Williams Sr. Hank Williams Sr. lived a short, blazing life where fame, addiction, and unfaithfulness intertwined. His marriage to Audrey Shepherd began with hope, but as his name climbed the charts, his personal life began unraveling. Hank had a natural charm that attracted women, and on the road, he rarely turned the attention away. Audrey confronted him over the rumors again and again, but the betrayals continued. One of his most significant affairs was with Bobby Jett, who gave birth to a daughter just 5 days after Hank's death. At the time, the connection was hidden, but years later, DNA testing proved it without question. The child spent her life fighting for recognition as Hank Williams' daughter, a struggle she did not win until the 1980s. Those close to Hank remembered seeing his life fall apart under addiction, even as his music soared. The affairs did not make headlines during his life, but they resurfaced years later through legal filings and biographies, forming an essential part of the tragic arc of his story. Number 11. George Jones. George Jones possessed one of the most unforgettable voices in country music, yet his personal life was tangled with chaos. His marriage to Tammy Wynette was as passionate as it was turbulent, filled with both deep affection and painful betrayal. Jones battled alcoholism, and his drinking pushed him into affairs during tours, creating rifts that widened as the years passed. George Jones would disappear after shows, sometimes gone for days, leaving Tammy Wynette alone with suspicions that eventually hardened into truth. The whispers traveled fast across Nashville, and by the time their marriage finally broke apart, everyone knew what had happened. Beyond Tammy, other women were linked to George as well, and his unfaithfulness became a story repeated by bandmates, ex-partners, and those who had lived close to the chaos of the road. His reputation for musical brilliance grew alongside his reputation for recklessness, and those who loved him often said he could not separate the stage from the temptations waiting outside of it. Tammy's heartbreak echoed through her songs, and listeners recognized that pain was real. These stories followed George long after marriages ended, becoming part of his legacy, passed down in conversations, biographies, and the memories of those who remembered how fame could pull a man away from home. Number 12. Glen Campbell. Glen Campbell rose from small-town Arkansas to global stardom, and with fame came attention, wealth, and temptations that he often embraced. His relationship with Tanya Tucker in the early 1980s became one of the most public scandals of his life, unfolding on magazine covers and talk shows as his previous marriage was unraveling. Their romance was passionate, volatile, and constantly watched by the press. But Campbell's history with infidelity stretched much farther back. Rumors and stories from earlier tours told of affairs and emotional turmoil behind the polished performances. His struggle with substances only intensified the chaos. When the relationship with Tanya ended, Campbell remarried, but the earlier scandals remained part of his story. The affair with Tucker turned whispers into headlines and showed how fame, desire, and personal flaws shaped a life that was as turbulent as the songs he sang. Number 13. Mindy McCready. Mindy McCready's life carried both extraordinary talent and painful controversy. Among the most shocking revelations was her long-running affair with baseball legend Roger Clemens, an affair that did not become public until years after it began. Reports suggested the relationship started when Mindy was still very young, though she claimed it became serious later. Once journalists uncovered the story, the media exploded with questions, timelines, and accusations. Mindy later confirmed the relationship but avoided offering every detail. The affair added a new layer of scandal to her already fragile public image, which had been shaped by struggles with addiction and legal battles. For fans, the revelation revealed just how complicated her life had become, and investigations later pieced together how deeply the affair had influenced the trajectory of her career. The story remained tied to her name, one of the most controversial intersections of country music and professional sports. Number 14. Randy Travis. Randy Travis was celebrated for his warm voice and clean, faithful image, but his personal life told a different story. His affair with Mary Davis, who would later become his wife, marked a profound turning point. At the time, Randy was married to his manager, Elizabeth Hatcher, the woman who had built his career alongside him. But behind the scenes, his heart had shifted. When the affair became public, it shocked fans and shook the foundation of his carefully crafted reputation. The divorce that followed was painful and public, with lawsuits and financial disputes drawing media attention. Court filings and interviews revealed how the relationship with Mary began long before the marriage ended. While Randy and Mary later married and stayed together, the way their relationship began left a lasting mark on his public image. The affair became one chapter in a broader decline as Randy faced legal struggles and health challenges that reshaped how the world saw him. Number 15. Kenny Rogers. Kenny Rogers built a legendary career with songs about love, heartbreak, and regret. But behind those songs were 5 marriages and stories of infidelity that shaped his private world. One of the most talked about affairs tied to Kenny Rogers involved a woman who later acknowledged that their relationship had been hidden throughout his marriage. For years, Kenny openly admitted that the road life came with temptations he did not always resist. Endless touring, admiration from fans, and long stretches away from home created opportunities that he sometimes let shape his choices. What began as rumors eventually became public when ex-wives and close friends shared what they had witnessed. Some of those details appeared directly in divorce proceedings, where filings and testimony outlined the breakdown of trust. Kenny himself later acknowledged that his actions contributed to the failure of his marriages, reflecting openly on how fame had pulled him in directions he did not control. He explained that balancing a public life with a private one was often more difficult than most people ever realized. Those admissions gave his songs about heartbreak a deeper resonance because the pain in the lyrics reflected the pain in his history. In the end, the stories of his infidelity became part of the narrative surrounding his legacy, a reminder that even icons can struggle with their own humanity. Number 16. Jerry Lee Lewis. Jerry Lee Lewis became as well known for his scandals as for his groundbreaking music. His personal life was marked by shock after shock, including multiple marriages, affairs, and controversies that drew intense public criticism. The most infamous moment came early in his career when he secretly married his 13-year-old cousin, Myra Gale Brown, while still legally married to another woman. When the truth was uncovered during his tour of England, it caused a public outrage that damaged his reputation and halted his rise to stardom. Beyond that headline-making marriage, Jerry Lee lived a life surrounded by affairs that were no secret to those around him. Former wives spoke of habitual infidelity, and divorce records later confirmed accusations of cheating. His private life was filled with emotional chaos, arguments, reconciliations, and breakups that were widely reported. Journalists, court documents, and even Jerry Lee's own interviews revealed a man who lived with little restraint. His music and scandals became inseparable, shaping a legacy defined not only by his pounding piano performances, but also by a history of constant personal turmoil. Number 17. Trace Adkins. Trace Adkins earned respect for his deep voice and powerful stage presence, but behind the scenes, his personal life experienced painful turmoil. His long marriage to Rhonda Forlaw eventually collapsed after decades together and after raising 3 daughters. Rumors of Trace's unfaithfulness had followed him for years, but the truth became unmistakable when Rhonda filed for divorce, naming adultery as the reason. One affair in particular involved a woman Trace had met while performing, and the relationship continued quietly until it eventually surfaced. Friends close to Rhonda described the emotional devastation she faced, having stood by him for years through career hardships and public challenges. This was not the first time his relationships had strained under suspicion of infidelity, making it a repeating pattern in his life. The constant travel, fan attention, and pressures of fame played their part, but the betrayal ultimately ended the marriage. Rhonda chose to leave, taking her daughters with her, and Trace continued his career carrying the weight of what had been lost. The affair revealed the cost of success, a family broken by choices that could not be undone. Number 18. Keith Urban. Keith Urban rose to worldwide fame, but behind the spotlight, his early marriage to Nicole Kidman was tested almost immediately. Only months after their wedding, Keith checked into rehab to battle addiction. During that period of late-night parties and blurred judgment, he found himself pulled into the attention of women drawn to his rising star, and one connection crossed the line into an affair. The truth surfaced when Nicole discovered the late-night disappearances and hidden calls. The betrayal nearly shattered their marriage before it truly began. The affair was not just a mistake, it was a reflection of the chaos he was living through at the time. Nicole stayed, but only after Keith vowed to change and committed to treatment. The emotional wound lingered for years. Keith never publicly named the woman, but his actions confirmed the reality. The incident became a turning point that forced him to confront his addictions and realize how close he came to losing the woman he loved. Number 19. Tammy Wynette. Tammy Wynette's life mirrored the anguish in her music. Her marriage to George Jones was passionate, volatile, and full of broken promises on both sides. As their relationship crumbled, Tammy found comfort elsewhere. Rumors linked her to actor Burt Reynolds after the breakup, and many believed their connection went deeper than friendship due to how often they appeared together. Her later marriages also carried accusations of infidelity. One husband cited sudden trips and quiet phone calls as signs that Tammy was stepping outside the marriage. Bandmates and crew whispered that she formed emotional bonds with musicians on tour when loneliness grew heavy. Tammy rarely admitted anything publicly, but those around her saw how often love slipped into heartache. The confrontations at home, the emotional distance, and the repeated endings of her marriages left a visible mark. Her affairs became part of the story of a woman who poured her heartbreak into her voice while searching for affection far beyond the vows she made. Number 20. Tanya Tucker. Tanya Tucker rose to fame early, but her personal life often overshadowed even her music. Her relationship with Glenn Campbell in the 1980s was not just a romance, it was a wildfire. Glenn was older and in the middle of a marriage ending, while Tanya was young, bold, and fiercely independent. Their affair exploded onto magazine covers, fueled by jealousy, passion, and public arguments. Tabloids followed them from city to city, documenting every fight, every kiss, every scandal. People close to them revealed that both had other relationships during their time together, making the situation even more volatile. Their love story turned into one of the most dramatic chapters in country music history, marked by emotional highs and painful betrayals. Even after their relationship collapsed, interviews and headlines continued to return to that time. Tanya moved forward with her career, but that chapter remained a defining part of her legacy, proof of how fame, love, and chaos can collide under the harsh glare of the spotlight. What are your thoughts on how these affairs shaped the lives and careers of these country artists? Share your perspective in the comments. And if you found this video compelling, be sure to like and subscribe. Before you go, make sure to watch the other videos now appearing on your screen.